Okay, so we're talking about the 4 health pillars, the 4 most important things that you need to focus on to get your health and well-being headed in the right direction rather than heading in a process of degeneration, which is always going to happen. But the healthier you are, then you can actually turn that direction and you can push yourself towards regeneration, and that's what we're all about. But you've got to follow these 4 principles. And there's so much noise out there in the internet and social media channels about what you should be doing in terms of your health, but it's these 4 things that are the most important. So there's sleep, diet, movement, and mindfulness. And this episode, we're talking about movement. So if you just look back to only 100 years ago, which is not a long time when you're looking at human evolution, is our bodies were very active, and the human body is designed to be very active. It needs to move, it needs to be constantly moving around to engage our digestion, to engage our lymphatic system, to pump our blood. It's a really, really important feature of our health and well-being, but it's often overlooked. And what has happened in those 100 years is we've become more and more sedentary, which means we've put on more and more weight and we've become more and more unhealthy as a result. And to put it in context, sleep is the most important pillar that we need to do, but actually exercise and body movement is the second most important, because you can out-exercise a bad diet, but you cannot out-eat, so eat really healthy, not exercising. Because the benefits of exercise, and the science backs all this up, is the benefits are so profound for our body in terms of, if you just think about osteoporosis, for example, we often get messages, what can I do for osteoporosis? Should I be taking HRT? The effect of HRT is minor compared to exercise. And in terms of our longevity and all-cause mortality, is exercise is more important than diet. Not to diminish diet. Diet is critically important, but exercise, I want you to understand, is just so important. And exercise, body movement, tends to become the forgotten sibling, if you will, in terms of these 4 pillars. It's so important that we move our body and we're exercising regularly. So what should we be focusing on? Well, again, back to the science. The science says that the best balance of exercise is weight bearing. So getting to the gym or lifting things or getting into the garden, using those muscles is really important. Doing that a couple of times a week. Then doing what we call zone 2 cardiovascular exercising. So what that is exercising, whether it's a light jog, a fast walk, or any activity, whether it's tennis, whether it's golf. So you're getting your heart rate into a zone 2. Now, everyone's slightly different, but approximately 110 to 130 beats per minute for a longer period of time. When you think about it, this is what we used to do. We used to be in the fields, for example, and we'd be moving our body all day long. So the body likes to move for longer periods at a lower intensity. And then maybe once a week, you can do more high intensity where you're getting your heart rate up to 70 to 80% of your max threshold. So the best exercise is a balance of exercise, but really making sure you get that weight work in. And I know myself, that tends to get crowded out because I prefer to go for a run. But find what you like to do, but really try and do those things that maybe you're not doing as much. That weight bearing, particularly in terms of lifting some weights and making sure you maintain your strength, is important. But don't forget that cardiovascular work as well. Trying to do activities, as said, that you enjoy is really important, but probably the most important thing, I suppose, takeaway is that regularity of moving your body. So every single day, it's so important. If you want to sleep well, you've got to physically exhaust yourself. And you've got to sleep well to then have the energy to exercise well. So it's this, all these elements need to connect together to allow you to do these things. But that regulate, try and do something every day. And what I do is the days that I'm not exercising, I try and keep active and move. And then the days that I do exercise, then I don't need to be as active. But I'm spending a lot of time working on the computer here, but there's other things I'll do is I'll get down on the floor and do some stretching. I've got a pull-up bar that's there. I'll do some push-ups. I'll make sure every hour I'm up and moving around. Doesn't always happen, but try and be very mindful of the importance of exercise on your health and well-being. Because what happens is bodies are very much a use it or lose it situation. And our energy reserves or capacity come from small little organelles in every single cell in our body called mitochondria. So what happens when we eat food, it gets broken down to something called glycogen, which is our sort of primary fuel source. And that then gets distributed throughout the body and then into the cells, where the body will convert that into ATP. So ATP is what the body then uses for energy. Now, what happens when we exercise is your energy demands are more. Okay, so if you sit around all day, then you don't need as much energy, so you don't produce as much energy out of these mitochondria, and your mitochondria numbers diminish. Whereas when you're exercising, you need more energy, so you produce more mitochondria and you produce more energy for that exercise. But what happens when you're not exercising? You've got all these mitochondria that are still producing energy for you. So from a metabolic standpoint, it's really, really important that we're moving our body and exercising regularly to build these mitochondria numbers, because then in every cell in your body, your heart, your bones, even your cartilage, you've got more mitochondria that work more efficiently. So it's a really, really important part in that degenerative process. It slows it down. And if you're really fit, then it's actually a really important part of allowing the body to heal itself, because it's got that excessive energy demands, particularly when we're sleeping. So really important. On the flip side of that, if you are an athlete, you need to be very mindful not to do too much. And it's a very, very fine line between overstressing your body, so you're exhausting yourself completely, and getting gains. So it's, you know, a lot of athletes are healthy people, but there's a lot of athletes that aren't, because they don't understand that balance. To get their best performance, you've really got to get that balance of rest and activity, and you get that right. And this is where biometrics can be really helpful to tell you when you should train and when you should rest. And for the average person that's not an athlete, using these biometrics are great too, to track how many steps you're doing, to track your energy exertion and demand, so that you can balance yourself out and know when you should be pushing yourself and when you shouldn't. And getting that balance of movement and rest, really, really important. And more important, as I mentioned earlier, than diet. Very important, we still focus on diet, but exercise and body movement, don't forget about it. Put it very much high in that priority. And I put it myself: sleep, exercise, body movement, diet, and then mindfulness. In the next episode, we're going to talk about mindfulness and how that plays in. And then we'll have the information on those 4 pillars and how do we then start to connect those dots. So let me know if you've got any questions, and I'd be happy to help.